What is up, everybody? It's your boy Jalen, and welcome back to the Locker Room Podcast, the number one podcast in the world for former athletes to engage in conversations about the difficulty of transitioning out of a highly committed sports lifestyle and into normal life. We're entering season 2, and I'm super excited for everything we'll talk about for the next few months. The first part of today's conversation is centered around one big question. When it comes to injured athletes, why are we primarily concerned with their physical health rather than their holistic well-being? Because when you really think about injuries, it's not just about what happens to the athlete's body. It's also about what happens to their mind, what happens to their emotions, what happens to their social life. But another glaring issue is the lack of support behind these athletes at times. In season 1, we briefly talked about the concerning nature of sports culture with a strong emphasis on winning rather than development. This may go hand in hand with coaches being pressured to rush athletes off the treatment table and back onto the field before they're fully ready to go, both physically and mentally, or disregarding injured athletes altogether because they're no longer creating value for the team. So today, we're going to talk about how injuries disrupt more than the body, how being hurt can affect an athlete's identity and connection to the team, and why long-term well-being has to matter just as much as returning to play. And of course, I'm not having this conversation alone. I'm joined by Majan Wheeler and Jack Ridgway, who are both old friends. They both bring their own perspectives to the topic of managing injuries and overall health as a person and as an athlete. In this episode, we're going to break down 3 things. Number 1, how injuries affect more than the athlete's body and why the mental, emotional, and social side of recovery deserves more attention. Number 2, what athletes can take away from the recovery process when the game is taken away, their role changes, and they're forced to figure out who they are outside of performance. And number 3, why this conversation matters right now, because too many athletes are still being pushed to return before they are fully ready, while the long-term effects on their health, identity, and life after sports get overlooked. Whether you're a former athlete, a current athlete, a parent, a coach, or just somebody who loves the game, this conversation is going to give you something to think about. But before we get into it, make sure you subscribe to follow the show, leave a 5-star review, like, comment, and share this episode with another athlete or sports fan who needs to hear this conversation. But without further ado, let's step into the locker room. Majan, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
My name's Majan Wheeler, former football player, played college ball at Columbus State, played high school ball at Fayette County High School, which is where I coach and teach now. Been playing, flag football for the past couple of years and just suffered another injury on the list. So, I'm just here to talk about it.
Sounds good. Appreciate you for joining us. Jack, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hey everybody, my name is Jack Ridgway. I grew up playing baseball most of my life, a lot of pickup basketball, football, a little bit of everything. Grew up with both these guys, went to school with them. Jalen from all the way from elementary up to high school. Went to the University of West Georgia. Didn't play baseball there, had some injuries near the end of my high school career that kind of messed all that up. But yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, fellas. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Majan, we'll start with you first. Take us back to, I know you mentioned a specific injury in whichever, and I know you more than our audience, but take us back to the specific injury. What were you thinking in the moment that it happened, and did those thoughts stay consistent or shift over time?
So in college, I tore my ACL, or ruptured ACL, tore it all the way through. Sprained MCL and tore meniscus on both sides of my knee, actually, like on inside, outside of my right knee. And man, when that injury happened, like the second I felt it in my knee, I knew I was done. Like this, when my coach came and checked on me when I was laying on the field, I was kind of just like sitting there, like, I can't believe that just happened. I really thought I broke my leg. I really didn't know what it was, but whatever it was, I knew I couldn't play. Like I knew I was done. I knew I was done playing.
So knew you were done playing for that season, or just
Oh no, I knew I was done regardless. Like I knew after that it was probably like no coming back. Like I knew the injury. Well, I'll say I knew the injury was major when it happened.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Jack, what about you?
I'll go back to probably my main injury that kind of messed up everything as far as my baseball career. I'd actually went on a trip in my senior year to Colorado and went snowboarding. Um, Really just for the fun of it. I never been before, but I grew up skateboarding, so snowboarding I caught on pretty easily. But I ended up breaking my ankle out there and tearing ligaments in it. At the time, I actually had no idea that I had hurt it that bad. I got back up about 10 minutes after the injury, kept snowboarding for the next 2 days. When you have the boot on like that, it was real tight, kind of held my ankle together real well. Ended up getting home, got recommended to go get an x-ray and all that by a doctor. And yeah, that's when I found out just how bad everything was. So the coming to terms with that was a little slower process for me. Like Majan said, I didn't know right away that that was kind of the end of it. Um, but I knew after I got the cast on my leg that, everything was over at that point. And that was in the latter half of my senior season. So from that point on, I was just kind of tagging along with the team, just I still went to all the games and everything, but wasn't playing no more. And I knew that was it for my high school career right there.
Right. So, a question for both of y'all on that, what you just brought up at the end there, Jack, was which one was harder? Like recovering from the physical injury, going through the whole process of having to do physical therapy, seeing different specialists, or was it watching your teammates and stuff still enjoy playing, still competing, and all that?
Yeah, I actually I feel like I have a different outlook on this than a lot of people would. Generally, a lot of my physical recovery, it took a little longer than most injuries before, but I had a lot of, I guess I had a lot of happiness in my life, so I really wasn't looking down on it in that kind of way. I definitely wanted to be out on the field, but I much rather, I was still able to be there with my team and cheer them on and know that I still had some other stuff going on in life to where I wasn't, just feeling down every day. The physical recovery was a long time for that. Well, a long time in that sense. I mean, being at the age of 18, it did recover pretty quickly. I was fully healed in about 5 or 6 months. That's still a good amount of time. But as you get older, I've had an injury that took a lot longer than that. I'll get into that later. Um, but being there with the teammates, it was still really cool to see them and be happy for all them. I was definitely able to do that. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but it wasn't too hard for me as far as dealing with that injury and being able to kind of still be there and be supportive of everybody else, honestly.
Okay, cool, and that's good to hear because one thing that I've talked about before is just um, because sports for me was such a huge part of my life, even though I never really experienced like a major injury, even the times where I had to sit out for a little bit, it really hurt me because I was just like, man, I'm not even doing anything else. Like I'm just kind of sitting here, not really having an impact on anything. Even though like obviously you can be supportive, but it's not the same. So that is good that you had
Absolutely.
that extra like hope or motivation to or to not lose hope, I guess. So Majan, what about you?
Well, mine was a little different because I started coaching football at my college like that. So I tore my ACL in the spring. That fall, well, right after spring practice was done, the head coach, defensive coordinator, and everybody kind of pulled me in. All the coaches had a meeting with me, and I really didn't know what they were gonna like what we were gonna talk about. I had been away from the team outside of like games, like I wasn't going to practices and stuff for spring. But we had these little like spring games because we were coming off the COVID year or whatever, so we played spring. But I immediately started coaching, so it was very hard because that July, I had surgery, and then that August, I was supposed to be the defensive backs coach. So it was really tough because I was going through rehab and all that, as well as and coaching, and it was tough, man. Because like I'm watching the guys, like I'm preparing the guys to get ready to play, and I had just played with them a couple months ago, so it was really tough for me. And then like they're looking at me for coaching and advice and things like that. So it was really a hard thing to kind of get through for me.
Right. Okay. So I kind of want to rewind just a little bit, just on the recovery process, but just on the physical side of it. Jack, I
Mhm.
want to kind of ask you. I know you said it was in the latter part of your senior season, but did you have any college aspirations for baseball? And like, did you, even though like, you've done stuff since high school, did you ever question whether or not you'd be the same athlete?
Yeah, so I definitely feel like it absolutely got in the way of playing college ball. That was my original plan, was to go play just probably somewhere D2 or maybe even D3. I wasn't, the star of the show or anything like that, but I definitely had some good coaching. I was in some pitching training in my mostly 11th and 12th grade year, but I did a little of it in my sophomore year. But I'd had these two guys who had their own program that they did. It was like a pitching program. They did a lot for like hip mobility, arm care, everything. They knew a lot of what they were doing, physically and mentally for athletes. So I got a lot of motivation from them. And yeah, I originally did plan on playing college ball. I had already gotten accepted to West Georgia and a few other colleges. I planned on originally trying to play there, but I was pretty much just going to be a walk on. But I figured, that I could probably at least make the team that year, if not in my sophomore year. But yeah, that injury definitely set me back for that. I could have probably went out and tried again in my sophomore year and got back on the team, or at least been able to kind of, be with the team at that point if I'd have got back into training a lot more. But it kind of really never came back up in my life as far as like what I aspired to do. I definitely would look back every once in a while and wonder if I should have done that or not, because by the time I was in full recovery from that injury was probably September of my freshman year of college. So I would have had about a little over a year to have, fully got back into training and everything to been able to try out for baseball that following year. Yeah, I definitely think it could have been came back in my sophomore year, but as far as when I talk to people, I tell them it definitely disrupted my plans to play college ball. But it didn't really. I didn't feel like it was the end of the world in a sense. I just felt like it just kind of changed everything. I mean, for a minute, back and forth, it kind of did feel like the end. But I knew, like I was saying, I knew I still had a lot of other good things going on. Playing sports and stuff outside of baseball. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So Majan, kind of the same question, but a little different because you said you went into coaching basically right after it happened, right after season. And so how did the injury kind of affect your ability to coach? Because as a DB coach, I mean, you can explain stuff all day, but we both know, the best way to do something is by showing it. So, how did that kind of affect your ability to do that? And also, now that you're in flag football and doing other things, how has that kind of affected you now?
Well, when I was coaching, I took more of the film study. I took the role of more of like film study and like putting together the packages for the defense or designing like different coverages and stuff we wanted to do. So my part was more so like teaching. And I think it helped me as a coach, and it would have helped me as a player if I would have taken those things, more serious or more like, just put more effort into it. But it just opened my eyes up as a coach because, like you said, it's hard to be a DB coach and you can't really like walk through the drills and stuff like that. But thank God our defensive coordinator was a former DB too, so he was able to kind of walk the guys through whatever drills we had. And um, but it was tough, man. Like mentally, it was. I felt like I don't know. Jack said he didn't feel like it was the end of his world, but it felt like it was the end of mine.
Okay.
So yeah.
So why did you feel like it was the end?
Well, at the time, I had talked to some coaches from like arena football, and like they have these leagues, like these Euro leagues, where you can go play like overseas. Or I think at the time Mexico was trying to build this big league or whatever, and they called my coach and they was like, we would love to have him if he's not going to go play, anywhere else. And they had a draft, and I was like projected in like the first couple picks of the draft and things like that. So to know like all of that was, in front of me, and then I have this injury to where I can't play anymore. It was pretty tough, man.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. So I guess Oh, I want to ask you also, Jack. You have consistently said the injury was not. It didn't feel like the end of your career. Why was that?
Yeah, I think if I would have had a lot more kind of going on around the baseball world, kind of like Mahjong, with the coaching aspect and everything, especially being in college ball too. I definitely think if I would have had the same type of injury in college, it would have felt a lot more like the end of my world. Especially what goes on in college, as far as workouts. I know one of your prior episodes, you were talking about the schedule of just, waking up for breakfast, having film to watch, having this to do, workout, strength conditioning, pretty much everything. So I know in college ball, it definitely would have probably had a lot more of an effect on me. But at the time in high school, I kind of did a little bit of everything throughout the year. So baseball season, I'd be in tune with baseball. After that, throughout the rest of the year, I'd be doing a lot of skateboarding, a lot of running, just a lot of basketball and stuff like that. Never played basketball for the school or anything, but just did a lot of it on the side. I played a lot of little sports like with my church and everything, a lot of volleyball, ultimate frisbee, all that. So as far as sports, it didn't really. Baseball was definitely my number one, but like I said, it wasn't my like day to day yearly process. It was more of just like in season, more of like a few months out of the year, and then a few months of off season training during the year. So for me, it it was more of just like a season, I guess, and I was able to kind of look at it like that and know that there was going to be another season come about. Once the injury was over, even though I knew it wouldn't be in baseball. And I think definitely recently, even in my late 20s now or mid to late 20s, I've definitely looked back and I miss baseball a good bit. I think I wish I could have had that time to play in college just for the experience and just for the fun of it. It was a big part of my life. I started playing at 3 years old. So yeah, definitely was a lot of my life spent in baseball.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear because Majan, we've talked about this before, and I wanted to ask you that, Jack, because like I've said, I've talked about that before, which I'm not really going to get into, but I know we've talked about before, Majan, about how playing football well, in college first, and then going pro was like the only thing that we talked about. Like that was all we talked
Yeah.
about growing up, all we talked about in high school, even in college. Talked about how we could take steps to get to that next level. And we never really, well, I know I didn't, I'll let you kind of speak for yourself, Majan, but I never took the time to put myself in different positions to not focus on football all year round. Like obviously I ran track in the spring, played football in the fall, but other than that there wasn't really much I was doing. So I want you to speak to that, Majan, and kind of what it was like for you.
Um, I really thought like being an athlete or being a football player was like who Mahjong was as a person. Like it was like when football wasn't there, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. Like I went to Columbus State to play football, to try to go to another school or try to get an opportunity somewhere else bigger. Like even though it was a small school or whatever, I still had those aspirations to go play beyond college and to know that I was good enough to do it was like just more validation for me to go, go try to go play somewhere else or go try to get paid. Cause that's, like you said, that's what we talked about. That's what we dreamt about. Like, I mean, even from being kids playing PlayStation, like I would create myself on the game and try to see like what team I think I would be the best on, what number I would wear, stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that. So yeah, man. So when it was when it felt like it was at my fingertips and then it just like split second snap of finger, oh my God, what happened to my knee? And it just went away. It was crazy. It was different. And I ain't gonna lie. I'm 29 now. I hurt myself like I was like 23, 24. I'm not gonna lie, bro. I'm just now getting like over it. Like I'm just now at peace with, not trying to go play arena ball or not trying to go play somewhere else. Like I'm definitely not going to like semi pro 37U or nothing like that. So it was it was just an adjustment that I had to make that I wasn't ready for or even thought would even happen. Like I never took injuries or serious injuries into account because anytime I got hurt, I really honestly kept playing. So
Okay. So On to kind of a different topic. Or before we move on, do either one of y'all want to add more about basically what we've talked about up to this point?
Yeah, I was actually gonna bounce off of one thing Majan just said real quick, just as a kind of like a motivation to the younger athletes who might be listening to this. Um, Part of the reason I think as to why baseball wasn't, I didn't really have any like, I mean, of course, everybody dreams of going to the pros. I definitely had dreams of going to the MLB and all that. But I didn't really develop many of the college dreams up until like my later high school years. And I think I attribute a decent bit of that to the fact that I actually I took 2 years or like 2 seasons out of baseball when I was 12 and 13 years old. Not for any real particular reason. I just kind of got a little bit bored with it at the time, and then I came back into it in high school. I actually started off in high school a little bit behind the curve of people. So I had to do a lot of training to kind of catch back up, to seeing the faster pitching, the faster paced play, all that versus like the early middle school days. So I think that's one little bit of motivation I just wanted to give to real quick to the younger athletes. Stay in seasons with what you want to do as far as sports. If you do want to make a career out of it, whether it be college or pro, try not to take too much time off of it unless it is for like health or mental reasons, stuff like that. But it is important to play at every level so that you'll be ready for the next level.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. I agree too. So switching to a different topic, because I think this is something that isn't really talked about. Well, injuries in itself aren't really talked about that much, I don't think. But did any part of the injuries you guys experienced in the recovery process and being part of the team while not really being physically able to contribute, so to speak, did any of that change the way you viewed your coaches, your trainers, your teammates, or did it kind of reveal a side of sports that you hadn't really realized before?
I got a whole new version of like next man up from my coaching staff, and I'm not gonna lie, my coach might get mad at me for saying this, but when I got hurt, nobody really believed I was like seriously injured. And I can vividly remember being on the field, the trainer running the test, and I'm crying my eyes out, not because of the pain, but like I said, in that moment, I felt like, it was over. Um, and I can vividly remember like my coach telling me, stop crying and it's not that bad. And I'm being over dramatic and things like that. Like as I'm laying there as the trainer is like doing the test to see if my ACL or knee is still intact. And it kind of made me look at my coach different. And then after the game, like my peers or people around me kind of asked me like, "Oh, bro, are you good?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm straight." And that was it. And nobody, came by and like talked to me about it. I guess nobody really knew what to say. But it just made me like, we preach family in sports, like to the kids or to the people that play. Like we always talk about family. But at that point, it didn't really feel much like family to me because, a whole bunch of other things start happening in my life after that. And the only thing I would hear about is the other things that I kind of picked up on after, or other things I started doing to kind of cope with my injury. But I didn't hear like nobody like it didn't feel like anybody really cared about that part or like again, like you're being dramatic about that part. Like let's cut the other stuff out. But it was no real dialogue or real like conversation about, what I was like going through mentally in my head.
Okay, Jack.
Yeah, I'm just gonna kind of go off what Majan was saying here. Uh, Well, a lot of so when I had my injuries in high school, or my main one, like I was talking about earlier, um, generally most of the guys that I was on the team with, like I grew up with a lot of them. So there wasn't, I mean, there was that sense of, community, like he was saying, but there wasn't exactly that like day to day or week to week basis of people really checking in. And I think a lot of that in high school was not really understanding that like them guys didn't really know that, my baseball career was over. We all just kind of assumed that we'd either be going to play in college or going off to do, whatever else everybody was doing, whether it be like military or school or anything like that. Um, but I could see that definitely in a college aspect as to where you would feel a lot more need for that community, especially like in the injury, like in the stat or like the statue of what yours was, just being a really, really heavy injury. And then like you said, kind of from the first instance of it happening, you feeling like, a lot of the people aren't really seeing you.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's why it's so important, especially as a coach too, especially as coaches and like training staff and everything to kind of be in tune with your players, with your team and everybody, just making sure that they're all right, even outside of the sport after the injury too. Um, yeah, that's pretty much
Yeah, you
most
guys
what I
both,
was thinking about that.
yeah, you guys both hit points that or just brought things up to my mind while you were speaking. Majan, kind of what you were talking about. I think one thing that is a major part of why I wanted to talk about this is because injuries create isolation, especially
Yeah.
when you have these major injuries where you physically are not able to make it to practices or workouts, even if you're just standing there watching. And because you're not able to do that sometimes, your teammates don't see you. And because they
Yeah.
don't see you, it's like, I mean, you're not here with us. You're not working out with us. You're not sweating with us. You're not suffering with us. You're not having to participate in these hours worth of meetings and preparation and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of like you get thrown on the back burner. And not that it's on purpose, but it's just kind of the nature of the beast. But
Right.
unfortunately, the people that the injured players suffer from that, because now you go from, like you said, everybody's calling it a brotherhood, where, well, now it's like you may get a handful. Well, you can probably count on one hand how many people really care about your, this recovery process, and just not even you recovering, but just how you're actually doing. Because like you said, in high school, it's probably a little different, because depending on kind of your future outlook, you might not have college as your plan A. You might, and it might affect you a little bit more. But in college, it's like, man, if you're on scholarship, especially, man, we're trying to get to the next level. Like, we're trying to at least compete and give it our best. And so, not having that support, it's just like, man, my career is in jeopardy right now, and nobody's here for me. So yeah, that's pretty tough to hear, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, I guess what would be some things that you guys that would have been helpful for you all in that process?
Oh, Jack, I'll answer that first.
Go ahead.
We still had like COVID testing going on. So even though I wasn't playing, I still had to report to COVID testing every morning at like 7 a.m. And I got my COVID test, walked in there with my coach, and that was it. Like, that was pretty much it. It was no, bro, you good? So I got hurt on a Saturday in a game. And then that Monday, I still had to go get my COVID test at 7 a.m. And I hobbled in there. And yeah, they was like, okay, well, take your test. Took my test and went back to my room. Nobody really said anything. I went to the trainer that Monday after my COVID test. The trainer didn't even believe that I was hurt. She was telling me to bend my leg so she could do the test. And I was like, I can't really go any farther than this. And I vividly remember her grabbing like my leg and like trying to bend it more than I told her I could physically go. I'm like, I can't go any farther than this. And I vividly remember her grabbing my leg and squeezing it together to make it bend more. And then after that, I was like, yeah, nobody cares about me. So I went to take my COVID test every morning and didn't say much. Nobody said much to me. And we just kind of left it like that. And I would have, if I could have picked, or if I could have like been in my coach's shoes, I think I would have just talked to me every morning, like just on a regular conversation, or just like, man, just take it day by day, or some type of words of encouragement. But I would have done it like, I would have made sure I went out of my way every time I seen that guy or seen the person that got hurt to like do that, to make it a point that I do that. But you don't really get that because college ball is totally different than high school ball. It's like, yeah, you might be a 3-year starter or I was a 4-year starter. But it's like once you hurt and you don't really have any value to the team, um, there's not really much, they say or kind of do for you after that.
Mm.
So I would
Yeah.
have, I would have like I said, the word brotherhood that we preached all day, every day. I would have like to see that in play.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's understandable.
that's terrible. Just hearing the story of the trainer, and that's I mean that you can't be more negligent and
Yeah,
ignorant
man.
than that.
I
That's
literally, so she did that, and I literally jumped off the table, like in tears, like jumped off
Mm.
the table in tears, and they were trying to get me to sit back down and come back, and I literally like limped to my room, and that was it. I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm not finna do this with y'all. I think I called my mom after that, and we kind of talked about it, and she was really encouraging. Like that night, I FaceTimed my mom, like after I got hurt, crying and stuff like that, and you know, it really made me. I guess at the time, like you know, people in Columbus or the staff or my teammates, I was looking at them as more of my family than my own actual family. So it just kind of put it back into perspective. Like, these are the people that's actually here for you. Now, I had some great teammates or some guys I still talk to today, and they checked on me and they, did the best that they could. But, that, other than that, man, I just felt like, I'm still 2 hours away from home or hour and a half away from home. Like, nobody, I can't hug my mom if I'm having a bad night or if I feel my knee like start hurting or aching or anything like that. Like I was going through all of that kind of by myself. Like you said, isolation. I was extremely isolated. Like I literally dropped all my classes except for one online class so I could stay on campus, and I literally stayed there. So it was like I said, man, it was rough. It was pretty rough.
I can tell just by hearing you. It was a hard time for you, man.
yeah.
Let me
Go ahead,
ask,
Jack.
for the sake, I don't remember if you said it yet, just for the viewers on the podcast. For that injury you had, did you have surgery at that time? Or like when you were showing up to these like the COVID tests and everything like that, like were you on crutches on a scooter? Like what was your well, I guess not a scooter, but were you on crutches or anything or wheelchair, or how was your transportation during that time?
Man, I can't even remember if I was on. I don't even think I was on crutches. I think I was still walking around on it, and I had surgery. Well, one of my teammates actually had a knee injury, and he brought me his brace. So I would
Mm.
put the brace on to kind of help me walk around. But I was walking on it for about 3 months until I had surgery.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. I'll shave my comments. But Jack, you want to add your piece?
I think most of that. I think Majan touched on most of it for the most part. I just yeah that now that you say that you didn't have that surgery for a while, that kind of even makes it even more crazier. Like how a lot of people weren't really believing you with your pain and everything, or wasn't realizing. I know when you're in physical therapy, like it's one thing if your physical therapist is like, oh, push yourself, like, oh, you can do this and that, but a lot of that is in the recovery from an injury. But like you said, it didn't really actually. You technically weren't even in the recovery from your injury up until after you had surgery.
Yeah,
So if anything, a lot of that process might have been making stuff worse.
right.
Um,
And
man,
then
I just
even
yeah,
and
that
then
sounds like it
even
was a
when
hard
I
time, man.
it was, and then even when I had surgery and I was like recovering, I the injury was so bad. I just talked about this in church this morning. This is crazy, but um, they had recommended that I get a knee replacement. And like I
Oh
said at the
wow.
time, I was like 23, 24 going through that. Like I tore it at 23, had surgery in July, so I was 24. But they had recommended me get a knee replacement. So my rehab was just so I was able to walk again. It wasn't for return to sport. So
Mm.
once I went through rehab and I was able to like bend and walk and I was strong enough to like move around on a day to day basis, recovery or therapy actually kind of like stopped because they was like, well, he's not going to play football anymore. So we just want to get him functional. And that's what my recovery process was like just get back to have a functioning knee, basically.
How was the process like after your surgery? Was it a little better as far as like the right people around you, like physical therapists and all that, or how'd that go?
Well, I did have a really good physical therapist. And she like I would talk to her about it and tell her like, I can't believe like I'm not playing anymore. And she really just kind of felt sorry for me because it was like such a crazy situation that I was going through. But even
Yeah.
even with her, she still was like, there's no like actual return to sport. So I did surgery for about, I mean, I did therapy for a couple months, and once she cleared me, it was just like, all right, well, see how you have a good life. Basically, I hope
Man.
your knee doesn't give you any problems.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that brings up a point that man, it's really up to the athletic directors, the coaches to make sure they have qualified people on their staff. Like obviously, in colleges, physical therapists or athletic trainers don't directly, always work for specific teams, but they may cover like all the teams in the school, and that could be different at bigger colleges. But I know the teams I played for in college, the athletic trainer, they basically just covered all the sports, and you would just have to go to
yeah,
them, and then everybody else would be in there too. But I mean, man, like that's really crazy how they just push you to the side like that and don't even care about like how you're doing as a person. Like, yeah, obviously as an athlete this sucks, but I mean, bro, like you're hurt. Like you're literally hurting. Like you wouldn't, if somebody just fell down on the street and busted their knee up, you wouldn't just be like, "Oh, you're all right. You're fine. Just brush it off." Like, no, like but it shouldn't in sports, like you said, we have this whole tough, quote unquote tough talk or tough mentality that um we don't even want to like really dive deep into what is really going on inside the athlete's mind. And kind of
yeah,
one thing you said, Jack, is kind of the lack of empathy for some of these players, man. Just because you don't feel or don't, just because the athlete may not be grimacing or crying all the time, like it doesn't mean they're not in pain. Like some people respond differently to all kinds of things, but I think that's kind of the main point from the teammate perspective is just having empathy, man, and putting yourself in other people's shoes, because just because you aren't injured doesn't mean it can't happen to you. And kind of something you mentioned earlier, Jack, is that in high school it's kind of easy to think, oh yeah, we're all going to play in college and whatever, but only 7% of 8 million high school athletes go on to play in college, roughly.
yep,
So it's just like, and that's
Man.
not obviously all because of injury, but it's just that's just the reality of it. Everybody's not going to play in college for all kinds of reasons, and injury is a part of that. So
yep.
yeah, it's really just tough that you experience that, or it sucks that you experienced that. But I guess another question: did any at any point did that injury kind of affect how you thought long term? Like not even talking about sports, but just did you think about the implications that it would have on your life, at 35, 50, whatever?
I think I'll touch on this one real quick. I've had a decent bit of injuries over the years. Some of them, not bad. Some of them pretty bad. And I've seen a lot of different ways of how I've reacted. From a kid, like I broke my leg when I was 9 years old. That had me out and about for a little while. That recovery was literally about 2 months. Like when you're a kid, the recovery is just insanely fast. But I broke my leg at 9. I cut my leg open pretty bad at middle school. Um, by my freshman year of high school, I actually had I had kind of jumped and kind of landed awkward and actually had like a groin problem. Ended up having to do physical therapy for that. That's where I learned how important stretching was. Kind of like Majan was saying earlier about a lot of his recovery process with the injury he's dealing with right now. Just how important stretching is, especially at a young age, but at the age we're at now for longevity. Um, but yeah, to touch back kind of what you're saying, I definitely think that my mindset was different for different injuries, but I would find myself like, I mean, at times, in a pretty like not dark place or anything, but I'd find myself in a pretty depressed mood a lot. Um, back when we were younger, hop on the game and stuff. If you're injured or sick, that was normal. So we didn't really mind being at home. But once it gets to a point where it's like week after week, months on end, it gets kind of hard to be in that repetitiveness. And then you start thinking about it like when you're older, you're not really just going to be content with hopping on a game or just sitting back and watching, movies or something all day. And you're grateful for that when you're dealing with the injury, but it gets kind of repetitive, gets to a point to where you wonder how it'll affect you next time you get injured. One thing for me is I'm scared to get injured, especially full time working now with the jobs and stuff we have nowadays. If I hurt my ankles again, it'll put me out of work for a little while. Um, and then in the future, when I have a family, I know that I'm not going to be able to be doing all the sports and risking all these injuries and stuff. And it's given me a lot of wisdom in a sense too, to make sure I take care of my body. Because as you do get older, injuries hurt worse, they last longer, and they have more
Yep.
lasting effects. Um, I know with modern medicine and as medicine advances even more, I mean, who knows? We'll probably have all these like knee replacements and stuff will probably be a few week long process by the time we could be 40 or 50. But at the same time, we can't really bet on that. So I think it's just important to take care of our bodies and make sure that we kind of keep ourselves out of those um, places of like despair when we are injured. Finding good hobbies as well that don't require much moving around. Make sure you do a bit of reading and stuff. Reading's real good for you. That's kind of some of the things that I've tried to do whenever I do get injured.
Okay, Majan.
Well, with my knee, I didn't think, I didn't really think about day to day because, like I said, my whole therapy was about being functional. So I knew I would be able to like walk and work and do all those things. And like I said, I had started coaching, and that's what I was in school for. So I was like, well, I just get an early start or like a year head start on my career. But shortly after I left Columbus, I had an injury to my back and don't even really know why or how or what happened. And that put me in a spot where, I thought like I have no idea what I'm gonna look like at 35, or what I'm gonna look like at 30. Because at that time I had two herniated discs in my lower back and a bulging disc. So basically
Oh man,
three
yeah,
discs, yeah, basically three discs were displaced in my back. And I couldn't walk and I was stuck in the bed and for the whole summer after graduation, I didn't do anything. I couldn't really stand. I couldn't really bear the pain for like longer than like 5 or 10 minutes. Even to the point where I was on the cane and like using the cane to walk around and things like that. And that put me in a space where it's like, dude, like we're definitely not playing sports again. Like we're definitely not getting active again. Like I just want to be able to walk. But
man.
once I kind of fought through that and was able to like get my feet back under me and able to run and jump and all that, I just told myself I would never be in a position to where like I wouldn't run or I wouldn't jump or I wouldn't go play. So it was a dark time, like when I was like kind of stuck in the bed. And then even then the doctors were telling me like, you're gonna based off of like what we're looking at, you can recover because you're young, but at the same time, like this will be a lifelong issue. It ended up not really being that, but um, they were talking about back surgery at 25. Like when I turned 25, literally my
Yeah, that's
25th
that's
birthday,
some
I was
real
in a
deal.
bro.
Hmm.
Jack, my 25th birthday, I was in a hospital bed. I spent my 25th birthday in a hospital
Man,
bed dealing with this back injury. They were telling me, you might as well like just go ahead and prepare your mind. I remember like my girlfriend at the time, we were looking up like she was looking up like wheelchair football or something like that because they told me I was going to end up basically being in a wheelchair like at some point in my life.
man.
Um, but thank God that didn't happen, and that's not true. I didn't really. I think the back injury made me like kind of stop listening to doctors.
I
but
think, yeah, I think there's a disconnect too with the doctors, I mean, they know a lot, but they do not know everything as far as
Yeah,
that. So, and I think
yeah,
willpower plays a lot of role into it, and prayer in my life, plays a lot into it too.
exactly.
But back problems of that nature, at a young age, you don't really hear about that much in high school. But for the young athletes who don't know, lower back, the herniated disc, bulging disc, all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. That shouldn't, that shouldn't be happening at a young age. And if it
and
does, it
and
can
and
definitely
I've
have.
no. Go ahead, Jay. My bad.
I was gonna say, if it does happen at a young age, it absolutely can have lasting effects.
Yeah,
Leading to like lifelong pain, all that kind of stuff. So that's a real blessing that you don't have that right now.
yeah.
That's
And
good to
then
hear.
for the young athletes too, something that I really didn't know until I got to my mid 20s. Like you can have a bulging disc or a herniated disc and not even know. Like won't even know. It won't affect you until it does. So it's just really important that guys and girls, like, you take care of your bodies and do the right things and make sure you're recovering from workouts or injuries even, and just making sure you're eating the right foods and doing the right things. Like, your coaches will tell you, make sure you stretch or make sure you warm up properly and all those things, because like not doing that for one instant or for one practice can last, it can have a lifelong effect on you. So it's just,
Yeah,
you gotta be
yeah.
more mindful of stuff like that.
Yeah, that's one thing I was gonna make sure I mentioned too. Is I knew somebody who didn't really stretch too much in high school, and he in tryouts he actually it was a slap tear, so it wasn't the worst thing, but he pretty much tore his quad, just sprinting,
Yeah.
just from not stretching. He was a good athlete, great at what he did too, but just didn't stretch, and that's a big important thing that I was grateful to learn at a young age, like 15 years old, how important it was. But that's something develop your own stretching routine. That's real important.
Yep.
Yeah, that was great. So I guess kind of following up with that, um, along the line of kind of learning things or certain aspects of being an athlete being more highlighted when you're injured or experiencing injuries, how have the injuries revealed more about you guys? Like, what have you learned about yourself through, experiencing all this stuff that you may not have learned if the injury never happened?
I think one thing I learned about myself, and I kind of had this mindset a lot of my younger life, but it kind of just made itself more aware or more present, I guess. Is I've always had a never give up mentality, whether it come to anything in life, whether it be just a task or a big event, anything like that. So I think never giving up, and even if you're going to be down for a little while, just make sure that find some good hobbies to do that you can do during your injury. Find some, and it reveals some stuff in your life too that you may have never thought you'd be doing this, or like you may never thought that your high school or college ball would have been cut short, anything like that. But it's perseverance, finding a lot of qualities about, how you take care of your mind, how you take care of your body. A lot of times, an injury will reveal like deeper problems, maybe with how you're not taking care of yourself well. You may not be getting good sleep, a lot of things like that. Um, so I think kind of got a little off topic. I have one thing in my head, but it kind of went away. But I'll just kind of let Mahjong take it from here. But basically, just when you're in a season like that where you have an injury or anything like that, just see what parts of yourself it can help develop. See what parts it kind of shown light on or show dimness on in your life, and just see what you can do with all the good and bad in your life.
Okay. Yeah,
One One thing I learned about myself was that I wasn't Superman. And even though I'm not Superman, or I'm not like this crazy, athlete that can get through whatever injuries or whatever's going on,
can you repeat
um,
that real quick? You kind of broke up on my end for a second.
Yeah, same.
I say I figured out that I wasn't Superman. Like
Okay.
because I would play through just about any and every injury because I just wanted to play that bad. Like I remember even having like, or feeling like I had a concussion, or hitting or getting up from tackling somebody and being a little dazed, and like still playing through. Or even like, you know, football, people don't really talk about this either, but you really do a lot of damage to your hands. And I had a lot of like jammed fingers and compound fractures and stuff. I just wrap them up and keep playing through. But I learned that I wasn't. Well, I was saying I learned that I wasn't Superman, but I was still resilient, and I still had a lot of like willpower, and I could still be those things. I could still be resilient and not necessarily be stupid, for a lack of better terms. Like, certain things you can't play through. Like certain things you shouldn't even try to play through. But I
And
was
that's
in
yeah. All right, go ahead.
no, I was just saying I was in the mindset of like, man, if you could walk, you could play. If you can put both feet on the ground and you're good, you can play. But I through those process or through these injuries, like I learned, like, man, recovery and rest is the most important thing. And then also another thing I learned was I needed more like emotional regulation other than like just going to run or just going to go play ball or going to practice. Like I remember as a kid, even like holding certain stuff in and then just letting it out at practice because that was like my safe space or my sanctuary or whatever I used to look at it. So you know, I just learned like I'm more than football, more than sports, or more than like what I could. I had more value to my life other than what I could bring to somebody's team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one thing, real quick, before we go on the next topic too, about how you said kind of being able to differentiate between like injuries versus just like soreness. Like if you do a big workout and you got some muscle soreness, that's one thing to play through that. Nothing wrong with that. It's actually good for you most of the time to play through your soreness. But like you're saying, if you're having to wrap your fingers up, if you're having to put KT tape on 5 different sides of your muscles. That might be when it's time to kind of take a step back and get some rest and reassess it. But it is important to have that willpower, but you got to have that knowledge as well of when your body needs to rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Extremely important.
So how has that taking what you all just said, what are specific ways in your life right now have those lessons showed up?
I would say the way I sleep, like even down to the way I sleep. Like now, I've done a lot of like research on like how you're supposed to sleep or what position you're supposed to be in. Like before, you just lay down in bed and go to bed. But now it's like sleeping with pillows in between my knees, or I'm trying to make sure I sleep with a pillow in between my knee every night, or just what side I'm sleeping on. Like I sleep on my right side with a pillow in between my knee. And before, like you said, you just jump into bed, go to sleep, wake up. You don't even realize like why certain things are tight or why certain things are sore. But I just was more aware of my body, through these injuries.
Okay, Jack, you got anything?
Oh yeah, just I agree with most of what he said. It kind of ties into the like we were talking about earlier, just getting a good routine with stretching. Getting good sleep habits, good eating habits. I mean, it's easier when you're a kid, to eat some more junk food, stuff like that. Not sleep so much at night. But at the end of the day, especially when you're young, I mean, you'll realize if you don't get good sleep when you're young, you'll realize it. And then by the time you get older, it's really important to have a lot of those good habits because it's harder to develop at an older age. That's one thing I've always been pretty blessed in is I've been able to sleep. I'm pretty much crawling to bed and I'm asleep in a minute or two, even if I ain't tired. Every once in a while it'll take me a little while to go to sleep, kind of like it was like Christmas Eve being a kid.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I've always been able to go to sleep pretty much right on cue. So I've been blessed for that. But that's why it's important to develop a lot of those good habits at a younger age, especially, if you're aware of them, don't deny them. It's one thing if you don't know, if you don't know good ways to sleep, know good things to eat. But that's important too, to reach out to teammates and reach out to people around you too and get some good advice about a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So kind of one of the last questions, and then I'll let you all freestyle if you have anything else. What kind of advice? I know Jack, you gave some earlier. What would you all say to any current or former athletes who have dealt with injuries and And especially for current athletes who feel like they're losing themselves because they can't play right now. They're kind of still in this recovery process. They may not be getting the support they need or that they want, and they're kind of fearful about their future. What would you all say to them?
Jack kind of touched on it earlier. He said like find like a hobby or like a low intensity activity or sport or something like that. And I would tell young athletes because me and my kids kind of talk about it now. But don't be afraid to get into coaching. Like don't look at coaching as like, oh, I'm just an old guy or I can't play anymore, so I'm gonna coach. Like
Mm-hmm.
embrace if coaching is on your mind, like embrace it because the the transition from player to coach is like is it's a really beautiful process if you do it the right way. Like a lot of coaches kind of get into coaching because of injury or because they can't play anymore, and they still hold on to those feelings or those emotions from when they were players. But you have to look. Coaching makes you look at your sport in a totally different way. So I would say like you said, find a low intensity activity or sport that you enjoy, or even if it's not a sport, just find something outside of your sport that kind of brings you peace. And remember that you're more than your sport. Like you're more than just a ball player. You're more than just a guy who's good at hitting home runs or a guy who's good at tackling. Like you bring more to the table than your athletic abilities.
Absolutely.
That's great. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I think Majan said it pretty well. For the most part, summed everything up. The one other thing that kind of was on my mind on that topic is just about we all have a greater purpose in this life, and a lot of times it takes you getting knocked down to figure it out, and a lot of times that purpose will change over and over. But at the end of the day, there's very few people or excuse me, very few people who will play at that top professional level. Like you said, I know you'd given some stats in the earlier episodes about how many people who really do go play professional, especially in different sports. Some teams have a range of 15 to just 45 or so players, depending on what sport it is. Um, but most people, your sports career is going to end a lot sooner than you think it will. But it doesn't have to. Like Majan was saying, you could go into coaching. There's a lot of other stuff you could do, especially career wise. You could do like athletic training.
Yep.
You could do like sports broadcast and stuff like that if you want to be around it. I know I've definitely thought about doing something like that one day. I know it's a little more of a thing of the past now, but like sports writing, journalists and stuff like that, it's really important for today's game. Well, a little more for back then, but with the internet and everything. But there's a lot of purpose you can find um, in life, even around sports, if you're not able to actually play the sport itself.
Yep.
So just make sure you take a step back, and sometimes you'll get knocked down, and you'll have to find it the hard way. But that's what life does to you a lot. So yeah, just find purpose.
Yeah, that's great. And I've said this before. I wish that someone would have kind of yanked me a little harder than they did to do something outside of sports, like whatever it is, even if it may be like not. I do understand, and I do agree that coaching is a good step for people who the injuries or whatever might be a factor that prohibits them from actually playing. But I do think it's important also to, kind of make that separation because at some point I think that just like you said, Jack, your athletic career ends often a lot sooner than you think and maybe not in the way that you think it will. And so I think the earlier you can have things that separate you from your athletic ability, it'll be much better for you. If something were to happen, God forbid, that you can't really play like you used to. Like, yeah, we can all play, football in the front yard or whatever, but
Hmm.
still have those moments like, man, like I would, what if I got another shot. So I think just having something on the side that you do just for fun, as like a hobby, like you all said, is I think that's good for especially younger athletes because the earlier you start, it's not as hard to adjust as you get older while you're still doing it. But if you're already in your 20s, especially if you kind of start this process after like 25, like you already got a life, full-time job, a family, all these other kind of responsibilities, then it's a lot harder to just be like, oh yeah, well, I'll pick up a new hobby doing X, Y, or Z, because your time is already tied up in so many different things. But yeah, I definitely agree with everything you guys said. So with that being said, do you have anything else that we did not hit y'all want to cover right now before we move on?
I think for the most part, said a good bit of everything
Yeah.
that I
One
can
one
think
thing I
of.
would one thing I would add though, I know we're talking about like injuries and not playing and this and that, but if you are playing or if you are at the level in your adulthood where you can still get out and move around, I just say enjoy the moment, like um or enjoy like what you get from that sport, but know that there's more to life than that. Like we've kind of said that over and over again, but like really enjoy those moments. Like don't look at it as, oh well, I'm playing high school football now, but I'm can't wait for college. Like just live in that exact moment and be present in that exact moment. And like if your coach is telling you to run hard, like don't look at it as or play harder or try harder. Don't look at it as like your coach is getting on to you or things like that. Like do that. Like do what they're telling
Hmm.
you to do, because there's gonna be a time where you don't have that. Like you don't have a practice to go to. You don't have a game to look forward to on a Saturday. So like just enjoy every single moment and soak it all in, because it is gonna come to an end at one. It can come to an end and snap a finger. It happened to me. So
Hmm.
just be present in those moments, knowing that it's gonna come to an end at some point.
Yeah, I agree. That's perfect. Jack, you want to add anything else to that?
No, I think that's the perfect way to finish it off right there. That was a great message to hear right there. I think you know, a lot of wise words been spoken, it seems like, on here. A lot of y'all young athletes, whoever's watching this, whether you're, our age, young, middle school, high school, we just hope that y'all can take some of what we've said and apply it to your lives. And, just know that a lot of what you went through, we probably went through it as well. Now, there's going to be some pretty unique things that you go through as well, but there's always somebody who's been through something similar to you. So just, reach out to those people. And if you need help getting through something specific, just find somebody who's been through it and, reach out and get some help like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah,
definitely.
perfect way to end it. So we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some things in the college sports landscape that we absolutely need to talk about as former athletes, and how it's transforming the game right before our eyes. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. One thing we talk about a lot on this show is transition. Whether you're moving on from sports, stepping into a new season of life, or just trying to create some order around you, sometimes the first step is clearing out what no longer needs to be there. That's where Jay's Junk Removal comes in. If you're in the South Atlanta area and you need help getting rid of old furniture, appliances, garage clutter, yard debris, or anything that's been sitting around taking up space, we've got you covered. As former athletes, we know what it means to work hard, show up on time, and finish the job the right way. That same mindset carries over into every job done by Jay's Junk Removal. So whether you're moving, getting your home back in order, or just tired of looking at that same pile of junk you said you were going to handle months ago, reach out to Jay's Junk Removal. Serving Henry County and surrounding areas, send photos of your junk removal project to 678-631-6171 to receive your quote today. And if you want 15% off your first job, text code JUNK. Once again, that's 678-631-6171 to receive a quote today. Text code JUNK, JUNK, for 15% off. All right, we are back, everybody. Now it is time to talk about something that is pretty crazy, in my opinion. It's been all over the news, and we're going to talk about sports gambling in college, and more specifically, Brendan Sorsby, quarterback that played for Texas Tech, Indiana, and I think maybe one more school. We have to talk about this because sports gambling is obviously super huge with pro sports, but ever since they've allowed it in college, it seems like stuff has just been going. It's just been kind of going downhill from there as far as the integrity of the game and protecting the players and making sure that the games are being played fair. I mean, from the athlete's perspective, because you have players. Well, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I'm going to read this. I asked ChatGPT to give me a quick 30-second overview of the Brendan Sorsby story because it's a lot to follow. But for the listener, I wanted to make things simple. So here's what Chat had to say. Brendan Sorsby is a college quarterback who transferred to Texas Tech, but his career got thrown into chaos after he admitted to violating NCAA gambling rules. Court documents said he placed thousands of bets, including bets tied to schools he attended, and the NCAA ruled him ineligible. He sued the NCAA and briefly won an injunction that could have let him play in 2026, but he later dropped the lawsuit, which made him ineligible again and ended his college career. The bigger story is that he then tried to jump to the NFL through the supplemental draft, but the NFL denied it, saying he hadn't shown enough accountability. The CFL, meaning Canadian Football League, also blocked teams from signing him. So now his football future is likely pushed to the 2027 NFL draft. So I just want to get you guys kind of instant reactions on that. What are you all making of that right there?
Yeah, actually, I've heard the name, didn't really know too much about the story itself. I think kind of the biggest thing that caught my ear right there was the fact that he like dropped a lawsuit and then tried to get in through the supplemental draft like that. Um, I kind of like the first thing I kind of thought off the top of my head was like, I wonder what his original like reason for the lawsuit was. Like, was it because he wanted a chance to play ball again? Was he looking for money or anything? Or um, I kind of I don't know. That's an odd situation. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that. But I kind of wondered what his main kind of focus was if he decided to drop the lawsuit, and then realizing that he, kind of got denied for two or three different realms of football.
Yeah, Majan, you
I
want to go
think
there?
it's crazy. I think it's crazy. I think the whole. Well, I never was a Prize Picks guy or a guy that did the sports betting. Um, but the fact that he knew he was violating as he was doing it, and is still trying to play college or think like an NFL team is gonna like take a chance on him is kind of crazy to me. I mean, look at the league. They had what Calvin Ridley, who was betting, and he got suspended, and his career hasn't been the same since. So a guy coming into the
Hmm.
league with that issue is like that's a huge, huge red flag for a college or any type of pro team. And the fact that he was betting on his actual teams is like if he knows he needs, or if he's on the app and he knows he needs like this amount of uh yards, or they need to win by this amount, this margin or whatever, it's like it- it's it would be a huge problem if this was like a why. It's a huge problem for it to be just one person, but just imagine on a wider scale if like everybody was doing that, it would be no integrity of the game.
Yeah, it's
Like,
really it's really kind of immoral at the end of the day.
yeah,
And it's
it's
it can, it can change the game, change the way the game is flow. I mean, just even outside of the morality of it, like it changes, like you said, it can change the outcome of a game. You don't really care about winning or losing no more, and
yeah,
that affects your teammates, your coaches, all that.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely crazy. And I think the morality of the players being able to bet is really the biggest issue. But I wanted to go back to the question you asked about why he sued the NCAA. So this is the part that was kind of interesting. So he sued the NCAA because they initially ruled that he was going to be ineligible because obviously he violated the gambling rule.
Hmm.
But a part of the story that was kind of interesting was that he did gambling like rehab treatment. Like he went for a certain amount of weeks. I don't really know. I'm not really going to look it up right
Oh
now.
wow.
So he did the treatment, and I think that his legal team was saying that he did the treatment. He should be good to go basically. So that's the other part of that. But what was weird though was the NCAA ended up saying that he was still eligible to play, which that caused a whole bunch of backlash with I think the Big 12, the Texas Tech is in Big 12 or Big 10. I can't really remember. And that's when there was a debate about teams not playing Texas Tech because if he was allowed to play, it's like no, we're not playing them. And so on that topic, I wanted to say what it's the Big 12. Coach Prime Deion Sanders had a little bit to say. They wrote a story on ESPN. Not going to read all of it, but one thing that he said that was interesting was he said the game is just positioned differently. money's involved, and anytime money's involved, people tend to migrate to what they think they can get out of it instead of what they could put into it, and that's unfortunate. So the question that I kind of want to ask you guys is, how would this have affected us if this was the landscape when we played?
Um, well, to be honest, you know, I think gambling. I don't agree with gambling, regardless. So I wouldn't have been a part or would have been a fan of it. And then now that these kids have like NIL money and they're all getting paid to play, it's like it just turns into a monopoly almost. Like there, you could just imagine how many kids or how many guys like stayed in school for long amounts of time, knowing that they probably weren't good enough to go to the league, and they took the school's NIL money, or they took the money from the schools or the NILs or whatever, and then they basically turned around and flipped it and gambled it and made more. And it's like, what are we actually doing here? Are we playing college sports, or are we just trying to get rich? So, like, what's actually going on?
Yeah, that's a good question as to a lot of people's reasoning too. I know a lot back in the day, especially a lot of people played ball because they love to play ball. Um, and I know a lot of people play ball for the sake of opportunity, putting themselves in a better spot, their family in a better spot. But when it's done like that, it makes you, I mean, I know, at the end of the day, you want to do whatever you can for your family and do whatever you can for yourself, but it can't be from an immoral basis. Especially like you said, taking money that were built for opportunity, built for players, built for, little schools and stuff too, smaller schools, all that. You can't really take that money and use it in that kind of way. Um, Especially, it's not exactly, that's not really much of a question about it. Like, it's not. I mean, if you ask the majority of the people, majority of them would agree that it's not a good idea to gamble with money like that you're getting for playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. It's just crazy all around, man. Because it makes me think of and now it makes me think of pro sports too, and the cases that we've seen where mainly in basketball. Well, I guess there was a dude for the Falcons. I think that
Yeah, Calvin Ridley,
yeah,
the
Calvin Ridley.
receiver.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, like it is just it's really wild to me because these players are getting paid millions, bro, millions and now you're gambling it. And I know obviously the contract numbers that we see on ESPN and the internet, all of it is not going directly into their pockets. They have a lot of fees and dues they have to pay, and they get their cut at the end of that. But still, I mean, these dudes are getting paid a lot of money to play a game, and it's just what I can't understand is why. Like, especially nowadays, like y'all mentioned, the players are getting paid anyways to play. So why? I mean, it just seems like greed to me. I don't even really know what else to say beyond that.
Yeah, it's greedy and it's bad for the game, bro. Like it makes no sense. There's no way to justify why. Like I said, it's guys that played college ball that didn't get paid, would have loved to get paid for their talents or because they're at a certain school, and now guys are getting it and pissing it off because they have it. And it's like, well, this wasn't the purpose of NIL or the purpose of college athletes getting paid, or even the purpose of the professionals getting paid. Like you're getting paid for basically entertainment, and it's
Hmm.
it just doesn't make sense. It just shouldn't be allowed in the game at all on any level. Like
Yeah.
if you're gonna bet, then you should have like it's like you're betting, but you also have control over whether it happens or not. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
it just makes no sense.
Yeah, and like you said, the NIL deals and stuff, a lot of the guys who didn't get paid, that's not like 20 years ago, this is just a few years ago. Like
No,
a lot of this is just blown up. And you got, people who was just a few grades above you who could have graduated college and be looking back and seeing all these stories and looking back on you like, man, I wish I had that opportunity, and look at what y'all are doing with that opportunity. That's a
I
big
mean,
thing. I think there needs to be a lot of accountability held too from that, higher people or
bro,
higher
I was
age of
one of
people.
those. I was one of those guys. Like I love school, And then the next year, NIL came. And I'm like, wait a
Hmm.
minute, I just busted my knee up and didn't get a penny. Nobody even cared. And these guys are literally just in college. Like, and there's no knock on them. I love the fact that they're, getting
Yeah, of
compensated
course.
for
Yeah.
being able to play. But it's like there's guys in front of you, man, that paved the way for you to even have this opportunity. And we were telling them how unfair it was, how like, you know, we're doing all this to our bodies, or we're doing all of this for our families, are making these sacrifices, and we're getting nothing in return. The only people that's profiting over it is the NCAA or the institution that we go to. And now kids are getting it, and it's like, I don't care about any of that. I'm trying to make more. It's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, no, it's bad, and it reminds me also of kind of a story where in basketball, I think this was smaller level basketball. It had to do with teams like Arizona State and some other smaller schools. Not that Arizona State is a smaller school, but sometimes it's not even the players betting on themselves or their teams. Sometimes they found that there are outside people who offer the kids money to then go and throw the games too. So
Yeah.
it's just like, how do you even prevent that? Like, and one question I had was, would it be okay? Not would it be okay, but would it, I guess, make sense if a player wanted to bet more on themselves? I guess it would be easier to do like, if they think I'm gonna get 10 rebounds or 25 rushing yards, if I don't do that, it would be a lot easier because I could just fall or trip or whatever. But
Hmm.
Yeah.
you know, would it make sense if would it make sense to allow gambling if players would bet that they could do more? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first thing I thought of when you were saying that is I think that that could work in very few sports. It's any team sport, whether especially like if it's like let's put basketball for example. Like say that like you said, imagine that there's gambling for like overs only. Like if you said, hey, I'm gonna make 15 points. Um, you could just throw the game and get less than that. That'd be easy. But on the other end, if you have to get more than 15, you might be the only one taking shots. You're
Yeah.
not going to be a team player. You're not going to pass the ball. You're not going to do this, X, Y, and Z. And if you've got three or four guys on the team who have that same deal going on, nobody's going to win. Now, I think in certain rare scenarios, it could work. Like for example, like golf or something like that, where it's like a solo sport, everybody's against each other. There's not really much that you do for yourself or don't do for yourself that has any effect on anybody else. Um, in that sense, I guess you could find kind of reasoning in that. Like if you shot a certain amount of hits in golf, or like if you were doing, there's not many sports, like I can't even think of one or two more really where you're kind of a real solo player. Maybe, like some track and field, stuff like that, like some swimming and all that. But for the most part, like any team related sports, it's not going to be much of a benefit, even if it is like an over type of thing, because it's still going to change the way the game is played on a team kind of level.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
agree. Oh, go ahead.
it affects, and I can look at it from a coaching standpoint too. Like we spend like hours and days and weeks, preparing game plans and things like that, just for a kid to say, "Oh well, you know, this guy's paying me, you know, this amount of money to basically not even care about, all this preparation I just did or my coaches just did for this week of practice." And now these coaches, just imagine if this happens every game. Now coaches don't have jobs because kids are making money like that. That makes no sense.
Hmm.
That makes no sense. I mean, even the basketball player, it's an NBA player. He he was purposely throwing games, missing shots, having turnovers because he was betting that he would like like this would happen. He was Terry Rozier was his
Yep.
name.
Hmm.
He was betting. I guess he was swaying his stats or whatever. And just think how that affects his teammates or everybody around him if he's the only one doing it, and it affects that whole organization. And like I said, that in turn affects the whole NBA because
Hmm.
you thinking you're playing, and then too to go to another point. Um, I think the beauty of football is to know, like, they used to have the saying any given Sunday, or they still have this saying any given Sunday. You never really know. Like, you might go into a game, and we've probably played in games too where we're playing a team or we're the team that's the underdog and we end up, beating somebody, right? Um, that takes that part of the game out. And that's why a lot of people, kind of gravitate towards football, because you could have a team that hasn't won a game in 2 years and then they come beat you. And, like, everybody
Mm-hmm.
loves the underdog story, but like I said, you take part of the game away when there's money on the line. And I don't think money or betting or anything of that nature should affect outcomes of games. And that's what it's doing. People are looking at it as stats or 10 rebounds, but that 11th rebound might be the reason why the Hawks win or lose.
Mm-hmm.
It's no place for it.
I agree, and I think even beyond that, I mean, it does not. It's not only affecting the players, or it's not even concerning the players, but it's the coaches too. Because
Yeah.
I mean, imagine the coaches. Some guy approaching a coach who is already making hundreds of thousands of dollars, saying, "Yo, I got 150K for you right here. If you pass the ball instead of giving it to Marshawn on the 1 yard line." It's like stuff
Yep.
like that makes you think like, oh man, like it's really deeper than just kind of what we see on the surface. And I actually misspoke earlier. The NCAA did not grant Brandon Sorsby his eligibility back. But what happened was it was a Texas like public official that gave him the ability to play at Texas Tech that fall if the NCAA would rule it. But that did not happen. So yeah, I wanted to correct that real quick. But yeah,
But still,
yeah, go ahead.
even with that situation, Jalen, what if that's a Texas Tech stakeholder? Like, what if he's part of? What if
Yeah,
he's
that's
giving money to Texas Tech so they can bring kids in? And now you write your own rule book, basically. Like,
Hmm.
he's a judge. He has, the clearance or the authority to, rule one way or the other in the lawsuit. And now you can do whatever you want because we just got to call our guy. And there's no place for that in sports.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and that makes me it just kind of brings up the question. I mean, where is sports going? Because it's only going to get worse, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
don't see it getting better because people are going to get more greedy. There's more money that's going to be involved in it, and so I mean, it just makes the game impure. And what does it do for the athletes who are trying to play the honest way? Like, what does it
Yeah.
do for athletes who are really trying to make it to the next level? But every step they can't even get away from corruption, and that affects their playing time. That affects their film to get on tape because they still have to draft players in these pro leagues. They still have to bring these players onto college rosters. So it makes me kind of feel for those type of players who are really trying to do the right thing, and you just never know which one of your teammates is having a bad night or if they got money on the line and they really are just trying to blow
Yeah.
everybody else's thing.
yeah. I think we're in a weird transition period right now between especially with the college, like the NIL and stuff. Like Majan was saying, this was just a few years ago when he was not making it, and then boom, a year or two later, he's coaching guys who are. Um, I'd like to hope that this is just a transition period that's going to work itself out for the better, and hopefully, whether it be it gets taken back out completely as far as gambling and all that kind of stuff. But with how the world is today, with money and everything as a motivation, that's probably not going to happen, sadly. Um, but hopefully, a lot of athletes can keep that focus and not so much kind of get skewed by the wrong crowd and worry about making this amount of money and gambling this amount of money and stuff. That's my hope, is that it can work out like that. But it's I kind of got off topic of my original. I was gonna say something, but kind of slipped my mind. But I just hope that for the most part, this is more of a rough transition and it'll kind of work itself back out and not get worse as time goes on.
Yeah, hopefully. The only question that I would have is just how. Like, I mean, how do you do it? How do you? I mean, obviously they can screen for like irregular activity from certain players, but I mean, in the moment, like that's yeah. So it's just tough. I think for everybody involved. Unfortunately. Former athletes know what it feels like to step into a new phase of life and realize there's clutter you can't carry with you anymore. Sometimes it's mental, sometimes it's emotional, and sometimes it's the old couch, broken dresser, bags of junk, or garage clutter that you've been meaning to get rid of. Jay's Junk Removal is your go to help with that. Whether you need a cleanup when you're moving, furniture removal, or garage cleanouts, Jay's Junk Removal shows up with effort and professionalism every time. So if you're in the South Atlanta area and you need junk removed, don't keep putting it off. Let us help you clear out the old so you can make room for the new. Call or text 678-631-6171 for a quote today and use code JUNK for 15% off. Once again, that's 678-631-6171 for a quote today and use code JUNK, that's JUNK, for 15% off. Okay, so we talked about the college landscape. Now let's move into the pro landscape and get a little bit of our hot takes, or maybe not so hot takes. Starting out with the first, what do y'all follow in the NBA? Do y'all have a favorite team? Are y'all kind of just general watchers? Do y'all not watch at all? Where are y'all at with that NBA?
I'm a general watcher.
Yeah, I'm a general watcher. I try to keep up a good bit here and there, but a few years ago I was a little more into it, and of course, like during the finals and stuff, get a little more in tune with everything. But for the most part, just base level, not near as much as I used to be, of course.
Okay, yeah, I follow the Celtics pretty closely. I've been pretty stressed out the last couple of weeks with all the trade talks and stuff, especially with our main players, which that's been pretty frustrating. But I did watch the finals. I was pretty excited watching, just seeing kind of two teams that have not historically been, well, I guess the Spurs, I guess more recently than the Knicks, but neither one of these teams 3 years ago was like, oh yeah, these teams are kind of in the running to win a championship, and kind of just seeing the Knicks do that, and obviously the talk around Jalen Brunson being too small, whatever. Just kind of seeing him take over, that was pretty inspiring to me. Like, I don't want to sound corny, but it was just like, man, he really put the team on his back and just carried them. And so that kind of, it was good to see as an athlete and as a spectator, but from my standpoint, being a Celtics fan, I'm like, man, I kind of hated seeing them win that, because now it kind of gives them, I guess, extra firepower into the season, and it kind of makes it's another threat added to, now we have to make sure that we are prepared for the Knicks and everything that they bring. But yeah, I just wanted to see if y'all had any thoughts on the Knicks and what that kind of looks like for the NBA this next season.
Well, they haven't won a title in like 50 plus years or something crazy like
Yeah,
that.
I
I
think
think it's good.
1973, I believe it was.
That's crazy. But I can't talk much because I'm basically a Hawks fan. But what I will say for the Knicks, it's good for their organization. I think it's good for the league because you don't have the same teams kind of winning. I think to spread the talent around, or to have like multiple teams that could go win, I think that's good for the actual league itself. Now, like for my team, I don't really know what we're gonna do. I just know we beat them more than everybody else in the playoffs did. So
That's true.
hopefully the Hawks do something next year. But I think it's good for all leagues when multiple teams can go win, because it just boosts the quality of the league. Like, we're not all just trying to watch the Warriors, or we're not all just trying to watch whoever's gonna whoever we think, oh, well, they were good last year, so they're gonna repeat. Like, I think repeats are bad for professional leagues, honestly. uh
Yeah,
you know
yeah, I could say that.
if
For the
if
most
you're
part, I
looking
mean,
for a
it has its ups
competition
and downs, but
standpoint,
yeah.
yeah, it has its ups and downs,
Hmm.
but because then it might turn into, well, who's gonna be the next good team that's gonna beat
Yeah,
these.
and
But it
super
kind of
teams to
takes
be
the,
built.
yeah,
Yeah,
just even the playing field. And then, like you made a good point just now, super teams. Like, now people are teaming up, and you're getting
yeah,
multiple
like
superstars
when
on the
KD
team.
first went to the Warriors back then.
Yeah. But now you got multiple superstars on one team. So now it's like, if they can figure it out, then that's good for the league. That's good basketball, with having Melo and Anthony Edwards on the
I
same
was
team.
just
Like,
about to say
they're
that.
gonna be hard to beat if they can figure it out.
Yeah, and then Giannis to the Heat. That was one big
Then
thing.
Giannis to the Heat, they're going to be hard to beat if you can figure it out. But then you still might have an underdog team like the Knicks, come back next year and win. So it just
Hmm.
opens
I
it up
like
and evens
I
the
like looking at
playing
it.
field.
Or go ahead, my bad.
No. That's all I
Yeah,
was saying.
I was about to say I like looking at a lot of the analytics of it. I don't watch too many games, but I keep up any trade and stuff like that. I try to me and my friends will chat about it on a weekly basis usually, especially during the off season, the NBA draft and all that kind of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Um, or when it goes on, but I think a lot of these trades are interesting, especially just kind of wondering what the season's gonna look like, and then if it lives up or lives down to what you're thinking about it.
Yeah, the trades are always interesting to me, not from the like the performance aspect, but man, I just think about these dudes with families and with kids and stuff, man, and living somewhere and being traded and having to move or at least move a little bit to a whole nother city. It could be on the other side of the country. Like I just think about that and I'm like, dang, like that part of it is kind of crazy. But kind of what you were saying, Majan, the competitive aspect, I do think it is good to have like these different teams. Competing for championships and whatnot. And we all see or see all the time players talk about how hard it is to repeat or even get to the finals or even get to the playoffs. Like especially playing 82 games, like that's just nuts. And having to
Yeah.
basically you kind of got to be lucky a little bit to not have people get hurt, and to be just for everything to kind of go right, quote unquote, for you to get to that point. But yeah, I think congrats to them. I think it was I think we got a lot to look forward to next season as general watchers. A lot of big trades that's probably going to happen. Honestly, my hot take is I don't think that the Heat will be that good. To be honest with you, I don't think Giannis and Bam. I mean, I think they're going to be great individually, but as a team, bro, I think probably like 5 seed tops, maybe 4.
That's a hot take for sure. I don't. I mean, I am a little. I am a little on your side too about. I think they might be better off individually. I don't know how they'll work together, but I feel like it'll work out a little better than fifth or fourth seed. We'll see.
I
Maybe.
don't think I have a hot take. I think Bam established himself as their star last year, and the fact that you're bringing Giannis is in my opinion, it's kind of a slap in the face to Bam. I know they're two different types of players, but you had a superstar that you could build around, and I don't think he's the. I don't know from what I've seen. I don't know if they're still a team that's like needs a big three like they had with LeBron and Wade and all them. I don't think that's necessarily
That's what
going to work again.
I kind of wonder too, like how they'd fit into each other. And I looked
Yeah,
at it more like I think Giannis will be way more accepting of Bam, but I'm not sure about the opposite. I mean,
yeah,
Giannis, for the most part, he seems like he has a pretty, good personality and stuff when it comes to like sportsmanship and all that. Um, I haven't really seen too much of Bam compared to Giannis, but just in his championship run and stuff like that in the past few years, or the Bucks, when they all went and did all that, but. Um, I think Giannis will be a good guy to have around Bam for Bam's sake, but I'm not sure how they're gonna work with each other. Kind of just like
yeah.
you were saying.
It would be interesting to see. I think if it was me and I was the Heat, I think I'd go get a decent point guard or something, or like I said, just pieces that go around Bam, and I push Bam as my superstar. I mean, bro just
Yeah,
scored all them points. Like maybe it was they kind of let him score, whatever happened that game, but he just scored all them points. He just showed you that he could score when he gets ready. So it's like I think you just kind of give Bam the keys to the ship and now, unless he just act like, unless it's something we don't know, and he's like, yeah, go get Giannis, that's a different story. But like you said, Jack, it'll be interesting to see how they pair together.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, moving on to the next topic. I don't know if y'all have been watching any of the World Cup games, but I know where we are right now in Atlanta, it has been absolutely lit. Anytime we look on a screen, they're showing what the fans are doing. In the city, they have I can't remember. My wife called it something that they're having like these little fan gatherings or
Fan festival.
yeah, fan festival. Yeah, there you go.
Hmm.
I think my sister in law she just went to one the other day. Said it was pretty fun. But man, I was honestly there was a lot of excitement coming. There was a lot of excitement in America because FIFA was coming, and where we live we had several World Cup games. We have I think 4 or 5 more, and just Europeans coming to America, getting to experience our culture like firsthand. And especially going to the games, like the games have just been so lit, and the fans are so dedicated. And man, soccer fans are like probably one of the. I don't want to say, I don't know if this is stretch, but I feel like they're probably some of the most committed fans in all the
I
sports.
agree.
Oh, that's
I
definitely
agree.
true. Absolutely.
I agree. I
Yeah,
mean, to have your whole basically everybody from your country that is going to come, you know,
Yeah, you got a big
cheer for these teams. Yeah,
representation.
like
Yeah.
they're walking the streets in certain cities like before the games. These people haven't even won. These
Mm,
this is before the game. Like you see in American sports, like before games, no fan base is doing that. Like they might riot or they might do something after a game and after a big game, but these are pool play FIFA games. Like these games, some of these teams, like once like once they start actually playing for the cup, they're not even going to be playing. But people
hmm
just love to support their country or their teams, and I think it's great to see. I think, like you said, Jalen, you might not say it, but I think soccer they probably got some of the best fan bases in the whole world.
yeah. I was just kind of torn because I think football has a good. I think football has a good following, especially now that we're seeing NFL trying to take games overseas to Europe and Mexico, and I think there was. I don't know about. I don't think they're talking about going to China, but I know different countries in Europe they've already started playing there. But yeah, it's just been kind of cool to see, and especially these smaller countries who, you'll see their population, or they'll be talking about their population size, and it'll be like not even 1 million people for some of these island countries, and um, it's just really cool. And I've never really watched soccer at all until now. And not that I'm watching it, I'll be kind of secondhand watching while I'm doing something else. But I mean, it's just kind of cool to see. Like, and also, man, these guys are so freaking athletic, dude. Like, I saw
Yeah,
a guy dive head first,
Insane.
hit a
Yeah.
ball into the goal. I'm like, what is going on, bro? Like, these dudes are insane how athletic they are.
yeah,
And they get like real deal, like kicked in the shin, like full on. And then they'll be on the ground for a minute because it's true pain and they just right back up. That's kind of that perseverance through pain too, like we were talking about earlier. It's just insane. And then, back in high school too, soccer, as far as most sports were concerned, the pretty much two hardest like training slash conditionings for the most part were soccer and wrestling.
yep,
Because soccer, you just running the whole time. I mean, it's the only game that has a literal break for hydration. Like they literally have hydration breaks in the game, which is it's crazy. That just goes to show just how much they out there. That's all they do is run.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. I used to think soccer was a sport for people that were soft, and when I was younger, obviously I was ignorant, but now that I've seen exactly what they do, I'm like, nah, these dudes are not soft. Like these dudes are next level, and honestly, probably some of the best athletes on the whole planet. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, no, it's been kind of cool to see, and seeing the European reaction to the different brands and franchises we have here. Like I was seeing some stuff on Instagram with people visiting like Bucky's and
Oh yeah.
like all the different kinds of restaurants and stuff like that. And it was just kind of it was just funny seeing how I guess their perceptions of what America was like beforehand, not even having visited, and now that they're here, just kind of seeing their experience. That's been pretty cool to see. So last thing, I know y'all may follow NFL a good bit more than NBA. I wanted to get you guys way too early NFL Super Bowl contenders because this past Super
oh,
Bowl, the Seahawks won. They beat the Patriots. They gave them a pretty good whooping. But there was a good running in the NFC and AFC. So I wanted to see kind of who y'all saw. I guess maybe not winning the Super Bowl, but let me get an NFC and AFC contender.
I say,
NFC,
all right, go ahead.
NFC. I might sound crazy, but I'm a Falcons fan through and through. No, I would never ever support any other team, but I think the Bears are going to be really good.
Mm.
I think the Bears are going to be good. I think Caleb Williams has that organization. Like he's definitely driving the keys to that organization, and I mean driving the car for that organization. And I think the Bears are going. I was really surprised when the Bears were knocked out of the playoffs, I think the Bears are going to be pretty decent. I think the Falcons are going to be pretty decent. I don't know about Super Bowl, but I think we're going to win our division.
Hey,
Excuse
I
me.
mean, I always like to say, it just you never. I mean, everybody's gonna be like, oh, with two and everything, but I like the idea. I mean, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I like a good left-handed quarterback. I know he's had his fair share of injuries and all that, but I mean, we're gonna see. I like the idea
Yeah.
of just
I think
something,
if you
just
can
try
block for
something because
Tua,
you never know.
yeah, I think if you can block for Tua, I think he's going to be pretty decent. As long as he doesn't get hit. Penix, too. Like, as long as they don't get hit, I think it would be pretty good. I think the Bucks are going to be terrible.
Hmm.
He's just saying that because I'm a Bucks fan. I do have high expectations. I don't know how well they will live up to those expectations. There seems to be kind of some stuff going on with our quarterback right now. That's a whole nother topic. But I think the Rams are going to
Yeah.
run the
I
NFL.
was just about to touch on
Yeah.
them,
I think the
and I
Rams are
was
going to try to make a push.
And that's what, especially with their quarterback pickup. I had to look up his name. The one in the draft where they picked up Ty Simpson. It looks like his name was.
Yep.
A lot of people thought that was a crazy idea, but I mean, it just kind of pointed me back to like a lot of more of the early 2000s, like quarterback development. I
Hmm.
think it's important for somebody like that to get on a team right behind Matthew Stafford while he's, doing his thing. I guess, probably near the end of his career. I don't know exactly how much longer he's got, I don't know if he said anything about it, but I think Brady used to talk a lot about quarterback development, how important it was to be, second and third string and not get no playing time for a few years. So I think the Rams are going to be something good in the next few years, as far as their depth and everything, at least
Yeah.
quarterback wise.
If we have to go with the AFC team, I have no idea. I do like the Broncos at the AFC, though. I do like the Broncos.
Okay, that's what I was thinking initially, because they had the stuff I can't think of the quarterback's
Bo
name right now.
Nix.
Yeah, Bo Nix. Yeah,
Yeah, Bo Nix doesn't get hurt. That Super Bowl is a totally different game.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think they have a chance at a run. The Bills look pretty good. I mean, they look good every year and can't seem to really get the job done. But I will say, and I don't want to sound like a bandwagon, Patrick Mahomes is coming back, and it's looking like they're restructuring their team to take another shot. So I don't know, man, but since we've been living, they done been pretty dominant in the AFC. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna go ahead and go.
Who'd you say again? What team you talking about?
Chiefs.
Yeah, Chiefs. My
Ah,
bad.
okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. Gotcha.
I got a question for y'all.
Yep.
What y'all think about Odell coming back? Because I think it's the greatest thing that's happened in the NFL in some
Hmm.
years.
I think it's great. I wish he wouldn't have gone back to the Giants. I can't remember exactly where he got hurt the last time.
I was wondering if he was
He was
coming
with the
back.
Rams.
He was with the Rams. Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
remember where they were playing, but I really, truthfully pray he can stay healthy. I really do, man. I
Yeah.
think that I can't imagine what that has done to him trying to come back from. I don't even. I think he may have hurt it more than once, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe he has had some other injuries. But
It was his ankle, right?
I think it was
Or
an
was it?
ACL.
he's
I
with.
think he
Oh,
tore the
was it
ACL
ACL?
twice, I think.
Yeah, that's what
Oh
I'm
He
saying.
man.
was tore it twice.
Yeah, so I just hope he can stay healthy, man, because that's the main thing. But other than that, man, I was super excited to see he got another chance because, bro, he's literally probably the most influential football player. I don't want to sound too crazy, but, bro, Odell
Uh,
might be one of the most influential football players that's been alive during our time.
yeah, I think so. I think Odell definitely changed the game of football from a receiver standpoint because even from how people do their releases now, like stuff he was doing that I guess wasn't necessarily taught by like two receivers that he was kind of doing is like standard now in the league. Like all these what's standard now in football, period. Like all these split releases and even down to like kids literally practicing to catch the ball with one hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Hmm.
I mean, even to what the gear they wear when they play. Like I vividly remember when I was in high school. I was in high school when Odell was coming through, and I vividly remember getting a mohawk because Odell had a mohawk. Like that's just he's just a I feel like he's just a generational kind of talent, and the fact that he's getting another shot, I'm very excited to see what he does with it.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I was gonna speak more to the one-handed aspect of how he just changed it. I mean, coaches are having to tell kids to like literally two hands on the football at all times.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's the exception to the rule, like by far.
Yeah.
Even he'll tell you, like, if he can get two hands on it, yeah, he'll get two hands. But I mean, these dudes are just so gifted. And I mean, when you think about their hand size, like, bro, these dudes wear like 6X gloves. Like, their hands are just gigantic.
Yeah.
So it's not even really a comparison with him to like a normal player coming up. But yeah, I'm super excited for him. Hopefully this season goes well for him, and he at least kind of proves that he's not washed, because I know that's a lot of the conversation that he hasn't played. Well, I don't know if he played last year or the year before, but he didn't really do much. Well, I'm not gonna say he didn't do much. From NFL standards, he didn't do much. But yeah, I think it'll be good for him for sure, and for the league.
Like, putting him and neighbors together is going to be scary. I think if
That'll be
Jackson
cool.
Dart can give him the football, they're going to be hard to game plan for, because from Knicks to Scatterbo to not Knicks, from Jackson Dart to Scatterbo to Neighbors to Odell to their tight end, like, you just have no idea who's, because it could be any one of those guys' game. I think the Giants are going to be kind of scary, even if without Odell. I think they'll be better than what they have been.
Yeah, for sure. I would probably give them one of the most improved teams, at least on the NFC side. I don't know
Yeah.
what their record was last year,
Oh
but
yeah.
I would say they're definitely going to be one of the most improved teams, if I had to say right now. Okay. Well, that is it, guys. I appreciate you for coming. This has been very fun, giving everybody a lot to think about. I hope that you listening will take at least one thing from this conversation and apply it, or maybe even share this with a friend or someone who you know is dealing with some of these issues. Share your thoughts and comments down below, whether it's about the injuries, whether it's about the sports gambling, the Knicks, FIFA, or our Super Bowl contenders. Doesn't matter. Just let us know what you're thinking, what we can do better, what you want to hear from us. This has been the Locker Room Podcast. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.